Welcome back to The Short Game, show about short video games, games that respect your time. I'm Reagan Kelly, and I'm joined this week by two of my most valuable co-hosts.
Laura Nash.
Nate Heininger.
And this week, we are returning to our annual tradition of talking about the games of IFComp.
Woo!
And it really snuck up on me this year. I had no idea this was happening now.
Well, in our defense, we didn't know what was happening because it happened a month earlier. I just got an email that said, hey, IFComp is open. It's like, I literally looked out the window at the weather and went, what's going on? Like, why is it 90 and IFComp is starting? It's because it's starting a month earlier, folks. So we've been doing this since 2015. And this, I think, is our first September IFComp. So we're a little off kilter here at the Short Game.
Yeah, it's definitely something I always associate with like the start of fall, you know. But that's okay. I can get into.
I've usually got my like pumpkin spice latte. I'm like cozy in a bathrobe playing my text games. I'm still sweating, man. My office is a humid mess. Like, and here we are playing text games. So I'm excited to get to it. The show was in a little bit of a scheduling logjam for a couple of weeks there. We had some travel, some work complications. Apologies if anybody checked your feed and didn't find a fresh episode waiting when you expected it. We do try our best to hit weekly on Mondays, but sometimes that is aspirational for people such as ourselves.
But we're back, baby.
Oh, yeah.
We're back and we are literate.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yes, we are. I was so very much not expecting IFComp to happen when it did that I didn't really schedule it very well. And so I've really only touched on two of the games of this exciting new comp year. Everything I've seen looks great. Mm-hmm. There were a few things on there that I literally could not wait to open up and play. Very excited to play. So before we dive into the specific games that we've played and talked about for this week, I know each of us checked out at least a couple. So we've got a handful of things to talk about. And we'll be returning back to IFComp throughout the duration of the comp, which is usually about a month and a half. Is that still the case this year? Do we know? When does it end now?
A question only the website will tell me, and I have to scroll up.
If only there was a place we could find this answer.
See, this is why I just pop quiz you guys, and then you have to Google things.
I believe it's October. A game just told me I had to have it done by October 13th. It is open till October 15th.
There we go.
Okay. So I've got till the day after my birthday. Perfect. Just sharing that little personal tidbit for you there.
Little plug for your birthday.
Yeah.
Everyone remember.
You can all send me presents now.
And Shane.
And Shane.
Maybe just Reagan.
I've doxed him as well. So don't apply for credit cards in my name, please. This week, we're talking about some of the games of IFComp 2024, but before we dive in, we were talking about it before the show. We kind of decided that we do this every year, but it has been many, many a year since we really did any kind of preamble for the IFComp episodes where we really talked about why we cover these or what IFComp is from the perspective of somebody who may be trying it out for the first time. And so we thought we'd just take a quick sec here at this hop and do that because again, 10 years. I don't know when the last time we do have a like intro to IFComp. Yeah. What is interactive fiction? What is the IFComp episode? But I think it's back from like maybe 2018 or something like that. I'd have to double check.
It's a new world, Reagan.
It's been a long time.
It's time to start over. Also, this is the 30th anniversary of IFComp. So what better? Our 10th year covering it, their 30th year. Let's dig into what is IFComp.
Yes. Anybody want to give a little bit of history of the comp? I'll start. IFComp.
Terrified faces, ladies and gentlemen, where we all go, oh, were we supposed to prepare that?
I feel like saying it was 30 years old is kind of the depth of my research.
You already did it. It's way back.
Yeah, we did prepare this, but it was 10 years ago.
Yes. Okay. So So we just said that we were going to give you this preamble, and then we've done no preparation or research for it. I'll do my best off the cuff here. IFComp is something that's been always very special to me. For me personally, like, interactive fiction has been part of the gaming landscape of my life for many, many years. I was a Mac kid. I didn't have very many games I could play on some of the elderly black and white classic Macs that I had access to when I was young. But one thing I discovered that I could play was interactive fiction. And this was in the probably very late 90s, early 2000s. For me, what that meant was finding pirated copies of IFComp games. And once I'd played through several of those and I kept looking for more, I found there was this emerging scene of interactive fiction authors creating brand new games, despite the antiquated tooling of the parsers that were based on, in large part, the sort of IFComp era parser games. There was new tools, new languages, new ideas in this space. And one of the organizing sort of elements of the interactive fiction scene for many, many years has been competitions, folks creating new interactive fiction, mostly for a small enthusiast audience of people who want to play text-based games, a small but persistent subset of the gaming world. And a lot of these works debut as part of competitions, and the sort of crown jewel of interactive fiction competitions are the Interactive Fiction Competition, aka IFComp. And it's run every year, I think, since it began in 1995. It's basically like a forum post thing, but it's grown from there. It's a community and event. It's an annual thing. It has its own traditions, rules, norms, etc. And it's got a very interesting history. We've been covering the comp on a sort of yearly basis as best we can. It's such a thing to try to talk about, because there's often so many works in every single comp. But as best we can, we've been at least checking out the new games of the comp and playing them and talking about them on the show every year for about 10 years. It's one of my favorite things that we do every year. I love it.
One of the best things about IFComp for me is that the assumption is that you will play at least 5 games to be a judge, totally free. Just sign up for an account and give a numerical rating 1 to 10 to at least 5 games. And there's a promise that you don't have to play any game longer than 2 hours to judge it. So although the game can be longer, maybe you read slower, maybe the game is harder, maybe the game is enormous, like that one I played that was set in a mall that I think was probably 30 hours. Did not finish it, but it was great. But 2 hours is when you're expected to rate it. So it definitely falls into the short game rubric. We normally can play multiple per episode, and it's totally free. So those two things combined make it a really good seasonal event. And the creme de la creme are classics of the genre. Like, there are the things that win this or get up towards the top generally stick around and are really influential in the scene. So it's both a cool way to play a lot of different games, get a feel for a lot of authors that are emerging and established. There are people in this year's comp who we reviewed in 2015. And there are people who we've never seen before, never entered before, or they're new to us. So I find it really cool to both see kind of friends of the show and get a little bit of new stuff.
Yeah.
I never know what's going to happen when I click on a link, and that never happens in the gaming world. I've always seen a trailer or a picture on Steam, or when I bought it, they made me see all this art for it. No, I get a little description and maybe a picture, and then I'm in a world that I wasn't expecting. So that's why I like it.
The website's been getting better and better every year, too. One thing I really enjoy, I think this started in the last few years. They've got a ton of great filters. So you can filter by playtime, which is great. They're all short to begin with, but you can get down to really short. You can filter by the style. So, like, personally, I'm not a huge fan of parser games. I try them every year. I want to love them. It's never super clicks with me. But so I can filter for parser or choice or other. And then you can even filter by platform, which has been interesting to see all the different platforms grow and expand, and just like the tech behind interactive fiction has just gotten cooler and cooler and more interesting too. So you can really go in and spend as little or as much time as you want on this thing.
A couple things about the comp in general. One is that, in case this wasn't clear, anyone can submit to the comp. There's no entry fees. And so because of that, this is something where basically any bedroom coder who's interested in interactive narrative or experimenting with text on computers can create works and submit it to the comp. Folks can submit multiple entries. Folks can submit up to 3 entries if they want every year to the comp. And while the definition of what is interactive fiction has evolved over the years, the current stance with IFComp is pretty much anything that you want to say is interactive fiction can kind of go. They don't really do a lot of filtering by or gatekeeping on what counts. And that's been a really successful strategy for them because over the what was it again? 30 years of the comp, new modes and formats and styles and ideas about what is interactive fiction have emerged. I mean, back in the early days, we were talking pretty much exclusively about the, Zork style parser, whereas today, sometimes the majority of the comp are things in a more don't sue me, choose your own adventure style, or things, using tools like Twine, which obviously basically became a mainstream tool in the comp over the last couple of decades now, more than a decade, I think. And there's continue to be new tools all the time, and it's really great to sort of follow year to year. But the other thing that I always tell folks is one of the things that keeps me coming back to the comp is that consistently, if you are a person who's interested in narrative in games especially, but also even just in sort of game design, game mechanics, interactive fiction is the sort of thing that a single developer can build and try quickly. And because of that, I think interactive fiction in general, and sometimes the comp in particular, is a place to try out new ideas that sometimes end up catching on and becoming much more mainstream. And sometimes you have this feeling of I have just seen a new idea in game narrative or interactive design that everybody is going to be copying this in 5 years. You get a little bit of an element of seeing the future or seeing new ideas that maybe if they don't take the world by storm, maybe they should, because there's great new interesting stuff happening in the comp every year. And also there's 100 riffs on a dungeon crawl, and sometimes that's great too. So this is a little bit of something for everybody, I think.
Yeah, if you're completely new and don't understand any of the lingo we're throwing out, don't worry, we'll describe it as we describe games. But generally, all of the games, the interaction is centered on text, and that's the only thing they have in common. Sometimes you're responding by typing in commands. Sometimes you are clicking things on the page. Sometimes you're making a little bit more intricate choices. I'm playing one that you have to go back to over the course of 5 days, which I'll talk about at the end. But there's a lot of different variety for something that is always just going to be word-centric.
Yeah.
And this is probably the one where we read the most text. So hope you enjoy our broadcast voices.
Yeah, I know. That's what I hope you do. That's what I was going to say, too, about just the enjoyment of this. I think everyone on this show is a reader, some more than others, but we've all been heavy readers throughout our lives, and games obviously almost always have some degree of text and story and written word and whatnot, but that's rarely the main thing of the game. I know that's not always, it happens, but for the most part, when you talk about games, you're talking about the full thing. This gives us just a chance to really hone in on the written word and how people tell stories and communicate and the interesting and sort of clever things people can do with just the written word or a small interface.
So shall we go ahead and move on to talking about some of the games of this year's comp?
Let's do it.
Yes.
Okay. So the first thing I'll say is that I knew there was one particular game coming up in the comp because there's a particular author whose work I've always enjoyed whenever it's come up. And as it happens, I'm so maybe a little biased here. I'm a patron of his Patreon and have enjoyed his work for many years, although I've still not played all of it. He's got a lot. And that is Chandler Groover. And whenever there is a new Chandler Groover game in the comp, I get kind of excited. So this year, there is a new Chandler Groover game in the comp. I'm very excited. And it is called The Bat. And while I am on his Patreon, I hadn't gotten around I technically had like beta access. I didn't touch it until the comp opened. Wonderful how something like the comp gives you like a kick in the butt to play something that you've been meaning to check out. Still very, very excited to play this one. And Laura, I think you played it too, right?
I did. And I just want to say that Chandler Groover is, there's a lot of his work you haven't seen because they're Fall in London exceptional stories. So I think he's done 13-ish. Like he's done a lot. I go in and out of the paid stories, but I usually pony up when it's Chandler Groover. Big fan. I played the Bat. Because I'm greedy, and I saw Chandler Groover doing something labeled superhero as the genre, and could not resist. Also, not only did it have Chandler Groover's name attached, but the art was a man in a tuxedo with bat wings.
What more
and
could you
it was
want?
Absolutely irresistible.
Oh, very irresistible art. One of the things I like about IFComp is that they do have that sort of album art style format for, just giving you a little visual. It's not so overwhelming like requiring 70 different assets like a Steam page or something. But, here, can you give me a little square piece of album art for your game? I think is a relatively easy ask. Not every game has to, games aren't required. You can post a game to the comp without it. But I think, it's one of the things I really like about their format. And yes, this one was magnetic. I loved the key art for it. So I'm going to do my best to describe this as spoiler light as I can. I will say that Chandler Groover operates in a number of different modes. This is silly Chandler Groover.
Not gross Chandler Groover, although sometimes it does get a little...
Yeah.
He can be very gory. This is lighter on that. Yeah.
Yeah. This is not Eat Me. This is not, God forbid, Tag Harem or Hairn or whatever that one, the cat burning simulator, which we
did
talked
love
about.
Eat Me, but it was
I loved
floppy.
it too. I loved it too.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I loved Tag Hair. I think it's a work of art, man. It's just a really ugly one. But this game is silly and funny and very clever. So I think that the elevator pitch for this is, how interesting Batman is? Isn't he cool? He's
I love Batman.
He's a billionaire.
Yeah.
He's a playboy, but he also has a secret life, a secret identity where he dresses up as a bat and does exciting, dangerous things. And he has a best bud, a butler, Alfred, who presumably takes care of everything back at home while he's out doing literal crazy shit dressed up as a bat. Well, let's take that to its most literal extreme. This is a game about where you play as the butler to a wealthy socialite named Bryce Wayne. Definitely not TM.
Bryce, totally different.
But it's Wyatt, and it's Wyatt, Bryce Wyatt.
Sorry. Oh, Wyatt. Excuse me.
So it's
Bryce
slightly
Wyatt.
changed. It's not Bruce Wayne. It's Bryce Wyatt.
Yes. In Gothenburg,
New Gothenburg.
New Gothenburg. Yes. There's so many. I think touches there. You get the idea. But the big difference here is that billionaire playboy Bryce Wyatt. His secret, it's a very open secret, is more that he literally thinks he's a bat and acts like a bat all of the time. And not in a cool, I'm going to creep down from the shadows and kick people in the neck kind of way. More like in a, he doesn't want to put on clothes and has to be put in a harness if you're going to make him wear a shirt kind of way.
And you you turn the lights on and he dives under the bed because that's
screeching,
Mm-hmm.
Clawing at the furniture hanging from the ceiling, and but of course he's still a wealthy socialite, and you have to host an important soiree to get the wealthy of New Gothenburg to get together and donate to the Widows and Orphans Fund. And if anyone's going to carry it off, his trusty butler is going to have to manage, and emphasis on the manage Bryce going to do that again probably, and sort of usher him through the activities, and also all of his guests through the activities of a successful fundraising gala dinner at Bryce Manor.
I love that you play Alfred, and it is both an Alfred simulator and a toddler simulator.
Yes.
This, I do not have a child, so Reagan can get in on that.
That was the thing
part.
that really struck me about this game is like, and I don't know how much of this is like my experience of, I have 3 small children right now, and let me tell you, like I kept taking like copying and pasting quotations from the game. I'm going to pull one up again, but like from very, very early, this is no spoiler since it's in like the first moment of the game. Let's see. We'll talk about the parser in a moment, but you know, the action was attend Bryce. You've been through this routine before, so has Master Bryce. He knows just how to pull off his trousers when you're trying to button his shirt, and how to unbutton his shirt when you're trying to put on his trousers again. He yelps and wriggles. You wrestle with him. Soon enough, his clothes are back on the floor. This is why it's so important to secure his harness first. Where is his harness? Perhaps it's still in the cellar from the last night. You have to go and fetch it. And, like, that's the kind of activity that you are doing as the butler to billionaire playboy Bat.
I don't know. I play video games to escape, and I also have small kids. So was this fun for you, Reagan, or is it just like, oh, crap, now I got to go put this down and do this in real life?
It's funny in that, like, it didn't hit me until I'd been playing this for maybe like 20 or 30 minutes how much dealing with Master Bryce reminded me of my 2-year-old. But he really reminded me of my 2-year-old. Like a lot. I mean, thinking like literally just tonight, trying to get everybody ready for bed, I was wishing for that harness, man. I was like wishing I could. And there's so many other great anecdotes in it. There's a moment, again, hopefully this won't be a puzzle spoiler, where you're trying. Master Bryce is being a bat, or thinking he's a bat, is very sensitive to light, and so there are dark glasses that you can get him to wear, and the Alfred character is. I keep saying, you know, Master Bryce likes to wear the glasses, but he doesn't remember that he likes to wear the
He's
glasses.
Forgetful.
If you can just get him to wear the goddamn glasses, he will prefer to wear the glasses. But you have to force them on, and maybe even secure them in some way. Puzzle solution omitted here. Like that struggle of like. You know, we both know that you're gonna like this if you'll fucking, excuse me, deal with.
Reagan, should we turn this off? Do you want to just talk for a little
damn
bit?
Pants.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
Okay.
Reagan is standing and sweating.
I'm sweating. But apart from that, there's a lot of other like mechanical stuff going on here. That, like the whole conceit with Master Bryce and his eccentricity is extremely funny and very well implemented and everything. He's very funny. It starts out like, oh, this is going to be a Batman parody, but it's not a Batman parody, or it is in a sense. It's so extreme in its parody that it loops around to being like an entirely different thing.
There's no world in which this man could be a superhero because he can barely function at his own soiree. It's lovely.
Yes. Yeah.
And you as the hyper competent butler, I love Chandler Groover is great at a limited parser, which is you still are typing in commands. It's a game where instead of choosing something on the screen by clicking, you are typing commands. But in this and in Eat Me and in Toby's Nose, which this is a lot like, you can use very few words. So in this one, it's attend to. And from the walkthrough, which I wouldn't recommend you look at unless you've completed the game and you're stuck, but it is completely written in character. So after I finished, I took a look. It says, the experienced valet will attend to the master and his guests for every act of service. No other action shall distract the valet from his duties. No other action shall be permitted. you can also just examine your inventory or think about the task, but you really can't do anything but attend to things. And it really helps narrow down what you're supposed to do. It's much more about going to the right place and attending to the right thing rather than trying to have they're still puzzles, but they're not quite as elaborate as some where you have to remember 30 verbs. It's tighter, and I think the pace really benefits from this. MathBrush put that in their review on IFComp, and when I read him talk about the pace, I was like, yes, it goes. Like you don't exhaust and get stuck. You exhaust, think it's over, and it moves. Like it doesn't ever get completely stopped. Yeah,
because that pace because the parser is simple and the puzzles are interesting.
Because Bryce is annoying. The game is not.
Yes, it keeps the pace fast, and that way it continues to feel throughout I don't know what the proper term for this is. A comedy of a exploding party, barely managing to keep things together. Keep trying to keep the veneer of control, of professional servant, of carefully planned soiree.
Which made me feel like, oh, yes, I am good at my job. It is Master Bryce, who is a bad billionaire.
bad man.
But the game is moving enough that you feel like you are, in fact, he might not be the greatest detective. He might not be the greatest bat, but you are probably the greatest butler because you managed to get the man to go down to his own party and kind of function and kind of fundraise.
I'm just going to read another quote that I to give you a little bit more flavor here. This was just after Dr. Malatesta had arrived. One of the elements of the early game is that what you'll have to continually listen for the doorbell to ring and a new guest will arrive. And we'll talk about the way that this has its structure in a moment, about how you're running around constantly trying to just complete various tasks simultaneously. But when a new guest arrives, you have to drop everything and go and answer the door. And Dr. Malatesta, a scientist, has arrived and says, "What do you say to a toast?" asked the doctor, taking a glass and lifting it towards Master Bryce. "To our newest study, you'll be pleased to learn that we've secured the cages since your recent visit. Secured them better. So sorry about that incident. No hard feelings, Mr. Wyatt. None that can't be tempered by a donation to a good cause." Master Bryce scratches his backside and drools. "A significant donation?" says the doctor, sipping his drink. Dr. Malatesta, plus $15,000. So that's the other mechanic here. If you're pleasing the guests, the number for their amount donated will go up, and it's in the status bar all the time. How much money you have raised for the widows and orphans, aka how successful has your soiree been. If you displease them, that number will go down. So it's kind of keeping score. The score is not super important, but presumably there are ways to please or displease the guests to influence that overall number. Structurally, the interesting thing about this is that you have to basically be running around doing tasks for people, and they can be as simple as this person wants a drink, and as complicated as this person wants a hunk of a highly radioactive material in order to complete some particular science experiment that they're doing.
Magnetopolonium.
Yes, yeah. And finding those items in the house can be complicated, but it's not just open every door. It's these somewhat interesting, complex, multi-part puzzles. But you're having to do all of those at the same time, and your inventory, in addition to the parser being very limited, your inventory is just what you can hold in two hands. Some objects, you have to hold them in two hands, that you can't carry anything else, except maybe some matches or other tiny objects in your pocket. Other objects you can hold in one hand and hold a different object in the other hand. But for example, if I need to go serve drinks to somebody, I have to put everything I'm holding down, get the silver tray, because of course you can't just be a monster and carry them a drink in your hand. You have to carry it on a silver tray, and then go and get the drink, mix it, and then bring it to that person. And that means that you can't be carrying anything else while you do that. So for me, I found this was a game where I really had to draw a map because it's a very small house. I mean, obviously, I'm sure it's a big house, a manor or whatever, but it's not that many rooms to manage, fortunately. And they're connected in a way that makes a lot of sense. But you do have to keep track of where all of your important objects are. So like if I needed to remember, okay, I'm going to set the broom and dustpan down in the in the basement and then go upstairs and do something. If I need that broom and dustpan later, I need to remember where that was because I had to put it down in order to pick up the tray in order to serve drinks, that kind of thing.
So it's because everybody else on staff has quit because of how
because why wouldn't they? Yeah, because the man is a bat.
Yes.
So I actually ended up this is a bit of a sidetrack, but I wanted to put it out there for folks who may be having trouble with map management in parser games. It's been, I think, maybe just over a year since Apple debuted a new system level app on Macs and iPhones called Freeform. And I cannot recommend this app highly enough as a map tool and note-taking tool for interactive fiction games. It's a great app for this. You can, if you have an iPad or something, you can just draw and sketch, and that's nice. But it also has all the sort of things that you'd expect from a workflow type of app where you'd be doing things like mind maps and stuff. So you can create squares, you can copy them, you can draw connection lines between them. But it also has a full library of shapes that you can pull out. And so you can do things like, I need a cat. I'm going to put a cat on the map. I can go into my little shapes library and get a cat. I'll make the cat orange. I'll stick it over here, like that kind of thing. So it's a really great app for this. And what I ended up finding myself doing with this was I drew out a whole map for this game, and then I made little tokens for all of the different objects I needed to keep track of, and I dragged them around on there. It was actually super easy and convenient. So if you find yourself struggling with games like this, map making is a traditional part of the genre. Like if you're playing a parser game, I think many parser games just expect you to draw your own map, and rather than keep it all in your head. Or some games in the comp, like one I'll talk about later, will provide a map for you, which is always convenient. But if they don't be afraid to draw a map. Just do it, and the more you can figure out your map workflow, the better. I'm finding that this what is it called again? Freeform app from Apple has been a boon for me in that area. Yeah. But anyway, great.
I use pencil and paper, but of that, to thine own self be true. If you are able to, I don't like doing window management when I am doing an IFComp. I like taking it big and full screen and using paper. But I definitely have for some games done the iPad sketch route.
I like dragging cats around on my map.
I think that sounds
cool.
lovely. I think that's just a lot more similar to what I do from work when I'm facilitating meetings. So that is not a fun thing for me because I'm constantly like, hey, let's put some fun stickers on our retro board. So I have all those skills from work, but I have never once been like, let's continue doing this outside of work. Maybe I should. I might. But paper's my choice. But I also have 30 sheets of paper on my desk next to my computer. So maybe that's not the best route. So funnily enough, on Tuesday night, I went and saw a Remains of the Day, which is a Butler movie. It's a Merchant Ivory movie about a butler and about how a butler needs to have no emotion and prioritize the whims of the master, even if the master is not perfect. And then the next day I played this. So completely different tonally, but I accidentally did my own double feature with them. The Remains of the Day. Highly recommend. Masterpiece movie. Nothing to do tonally with this one. Anything else, Reagan, before we let Nate talk about another totally different game?
No, I feel a little silly that we just spent the first half hour of the podcast talking about one game, and there's, 60 games in the comp this year? I didn't even count this time.
It was a 2-hour game, and we did do a brief intro, but yes. I want to hear about Rod McSlong gets punched to the dog.
So, Laura, you guys know me, right? I care deeply about the sanctity and the integrity of this competition. And so your game sounds really cool, sounds really fun, sounds very interesting. But I prefer the more intellectual work. So that is why I gravitated immediately to Rod McSchlong Gets Punched in the Dong, which is, of course, the long-awaited follow-up to Dick McButts gets kicked in the nuts from last year's comp.
A seminal work.
Yes.
In every sense of the word.
Sense.
Oh, no.
And this is, of course, by Mastermind Hubert, Janus, who I have no idea any of their other work. But yes, this was the first game I played. I always love to start the comp sort of short up. So I go in, I was talking about the filters earlier. I set my filter on 15 minutes, choice based, just kind of get my feet wet. And the very first game on the list was Rod McSchlong gets punched in the dog. So like, well, it is fate. So of course,
can you refresh our memory a little bit for the listeners about last year's Dick McButts gets kicked in the nuts?
Well, so surprisingly, these games are very similar. Which the whole concept is that you are in this one you're Rod McSchlong, in the last one you're Dick McButts, and for one reason or another there is a magnetic force towards you. A never-ending spree of entities that are trying to kick you in the nuts. Or as this game has virtually every... You know that scene in like Austin Powers where they do like 9 different like jokes, all euphemisms for like dick or whatever? That's this game in a nutshell. It's just how many euphemisms, how many rhyming euphemisms can they come up with? And you are playing in this one, Rod McSchlong, and you're desperately trying to avoid getting punched in the dong. So it is a twine game, choice-based. It's just high stupidity. It's like the game opens with you sitting in a sushi restaurant, and a leprechaun, like a little leprechaun, is coming and is there to punch you in the dong, which is advantageous because the height, it works out for them. So it makes avoiding them actually more challenging than you would think. Like you have options like jumping over them, but you really don't want to try that for obvious reasons. So instead, you might jump up onto the conveyor belt that's at the sushi restaurant.
2 games in a row that are clear parenting simulators. I don't know about you, but my kids have like a preternatural, like instinctive, inbuilt ability to like hit me in the fucking balls.
No, Reagan,
man.
see, that's why I just never go near my kids.
That is the pro parent move.
Oh, pro dad action. That's right there. Just don't. Say no to parenting.
Yeah. So this whole thing, it's just a setup for jokes and bad rhymes. There's 1,000 different little choices. And most of them result in you getting kicked in the dong, which is funny every time, or punched, or like, there's a lot of different outcomes, a lot of different ways.
All choices lead to.
However, there is, I got the good ending. And I think there's a lot of endings if you include just being punched in the dong, but I think there are multiple like endings. I got the, Rod McSchlong saves the multiverse ending, which was fun, so
everything's a
multiverse now. But yeah, I mean, obviously most of this is tongue in cheek. This game is dumb as hell, but it was fun. It's stupid. If you're looking for like a 15-minute immature run of jokes, like this is exactly there for you. And I like that the comp has space for things like this too.
I love it too. I also will say that like I remember last year, like I played a couple of times through Dick McButts Gets Kicked in the Nuts, a game whose title I will never not say in full because it's so much fun to say. Inspired. I didn't end up with many very varied, interesting options, but I found out afterwards that there were a lot of much more, like it was much more deeply branching than it seemed at first. And I wonder if that's probably true for this as well. This is one of those things where like, hey, listener, if you found some bizarre like game within a game or hidden deep meaning of life ending or something like that to Rod McSchlong, hit us up. I want to hear about that.
Yeah.
Maybe don't want to like explore every potential avenue of getting hit in the ding, but
yeah,
Hit the ding is a new one for me.
I didn't see any other ending that wasn't just getting punched or being hit. It's not always a punch. There's a lot of this, but I assume that there is because, Dick McButts also had that. So I played through, it has a really easy interface where when you make a choice that results in you getting hit, you can like go back to that choice and branch a different path. And there's a lot of choices that I made that ended up okay. So I assume I found some varied branch. And I saved the multiverse. There was a fun cameo, so no spoilers, but you might guess who it was.
Was it Dick McButts?
Of course, it was Dick McButts. Spoilers!
Amazing crossover.
Yeah. It's a crossover we all wanted. So again, this it's fun. It's stupid.
I wonder if it's more fun to talk about than play.
I think probably.
But honestly, that might be in its favor for the comp.
I think so too. Yeah. I mean, I had to play it. It.
Of course.
It was literally the first one on my list. Like, not a hand list I created, but when I filtered everything, it was the number one thing. I'm like, well, the gods are with me. I must play this game.
Oh, man. One of the things I like, you mentioned earlier that like the comp's website only gets better. I remember when they added, this has now been probably years, it still feels like a new feature to me, but they added like options to have like a personal sort where it does a random order, but your random order is the same for you every time. So you get a random shuffle, but you don't have to like get lost every time it reshuffles when you load the page or whatever. And that's an inspired addition to the page. I really like that. So, the comp page continues to get better. Yeah. I didn't notice any like exciting new features this year or anything, but like I continue to be impressed and always like it's wonderful when you have a community like this that like puts together a recurring event and they tool it out and they like really make it fun for everybody involved. Like little stuff like that is so good.
So I played another game that was this is a total tonal shift away from Rod McSchlong. And it came under the same filter. It was like, 15 minutes or so. I think this actually took me a little bit longer, but I'm not the quickest reader. But it was a choice-based Twine game called You Can't Save Her by Sarah Mack. Now, the credits of this game directly thank Porpentine, and there are references to some of their work in this game. So definitely, we've talked, the comp sort of builds on itself and is very referential to previous works from the comp. But this was a fun little, I don't know if fun's the right word for it. This is a far more serious game than Rod McSchlong. It's sort of a sci-fi tale about two people who were in some sort of monastery to one god, and their friend found a book that taught them about the other god, and it sort of created this separation. And the game switches back and forth between you're playing from the perspective of both people in this, and the sort of hook of the game is that one has been sent to kill the other as sort of their final test to like graduate from this monastery. And I don't know, it's really well written, really interesting. It has music, which I always love, all from the browser. It has music, the backgrounds change, the way the words appear on the screen move around and change, and it just adds a lot of tension to the whole thing. So I really ended up enjoying it, and I would recommend it. I don't feel like I have a ton to say about it because a lot of it is just sort of in the prose, and I didn't take any screenshots or anything, so I'm not going to gonna read it, but it was a cool story. You get good future-ish type language, like the sacred algorithms and stuff like that. I'm always a sucker for that sort of thing. So I'd recommend it. It's a good swap from Rod McSchlong. I feel bad for Sarah, the author, that I'm talking about her story and Rod McSchlong in the same sort of segment on this show, but they balance each other.
I really want to check this out. This is like exactly my vibe for this kind of stuff, man. I'm such a Porpentine fan. Love her work. And this obviously is kind of going a little bit for her vibe. It's nice that they acknowledge that. But like this, yeah, like, I mean, if you hadn't gotten to this probably would have been like next on my list or like top few. So I'm glad you liked it. I'm probably going to check it out too. I don't know if we'll... I'll revisit it on the show here. But
yeah,
this definitely looks
and cool. It was probably more like 20, 25 minutes for me. But again, that's
shorty.
It's still very, very short. And
nice.
Yeah, I'd check it out.
Those are really good games. If it comes up to, October 14th and you need some quick ones, I think I often try to, you'll see that I go back and forth between a 2-hour game like the Bat, and then I'll play something really short because I need to cover something else for the episode. That's how that works.
And speaking of, what else did you play, Laura?
Well,
no, I'm next on the list, aren't I? Forsaken Denizen. Very excited to tell you guys that there's a new game in the comp by C.E.J. Pacian. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I think it's the Latin pronunciation, Pacian. This is an author who, so I'm not familiar with all of their work. They've actually created a number of pretty elaborate interactive fiction games. They've got a nice website where they list everything. The one game of this author that I had played previously was Superluminal Vagrant Twin, an extremely well-regarded, I think 2016 or 17 interactive fiction sort of space trading game. And I think it's an amazing game. It's like really, really damn good. It's good for new parser players. If you haven't played a parser game before, it does enough hand holding while still feeling really cool. It's one of my favorite interactive fictions I've ever played. And it's also one that I tried to get us to do an entire episode on the show, and just it never landed. I think it absolutely would support its own episode. And it's we don't cover a lot of interactive fiction that doesn't come from the comp, because just we do the comp every year, and then it kind of feels like, well, we're kind of done with interactive fiction for the year, and what do you do? But like, every now and then I do play, interactive fiction from the wider scene, things that have bubbled up that are, well regarded, that are not from the comp itself. And this is one of those games that like really stuck with me. Incredible game. And so when I saw when I heard there was another game by this author in the comp, I was very excited to play it, despite the fact that it's in a genre that I don't really enjoy that often. This is a survival horror game done in a parser style. I'm not really a big survival horror guy. I was never a Resident Evil guy. I didn't have a PlayStation in the right era to get to get Resident Evil pilled. I played some Resident Evil and a few other survival horror games in later years. Most especially, I really enjoyed RE7, but like, it's not a genre that like I really go back to all the time or inhabit. There are things about the survival horror genre that I like. I kind of like the way that it keeps alive some of the adventure game tropes that have kind of drifted away from a lot of the rest of the gaming landscape. Survival horror is kind of like the last place where you're going to get like, a color-coded key code door card or whatever, right? Like, people don't do that in other genres anymore, but like, survival horror is all about it, man. Like, and I love appreciate a good door key card,
Yeah,
man. I love a door key card. Color-coded. I love like a fox key, and you have to use it in the fox door, and it's got a fox on it, man. Like, that stuff I love. Like, so I'm all about it. But I'm also a big weenie, and horror is not. So like, I've attempted to play some survival horror games, and I don't enjoy them because my body hates it. Like I'm a big weenie.
You're also a horror movie fan too, so
I am.
Yeah, that's why I can't. I'm just kind of staring at the screen, which is great podcast content, where I'm trying to square your. But is that because your wife likes horror movies, or
yeah, it's because my wife likes horror movies. Man,
okay,
she drags me into that stuff. I'll sit through a horror movie with her, and I'll have different reactions to it than she does. But movies are different, man. Like it's not up to me.
Yeah.
If people are gonna die, they're gonna die. But why do I have to be responsible for that? Exactly. I can't handle being the guy that let the poor girl get sawed in half. Like I don't like that. Anyway, this actually worked better for me because survival horror is great when you don't have to look at the gore, and when it's turn-based. That's something that survival horror is generally not. So I really like that aspect of it. So here the setup is, okay, this is a survival horror future science fiction setting. I'm trying to pull up my notes here because I had some quotations. So Forsaken Denizen, if I didn't catch the title earlier, I hope I did. Forsaken Denizen by C.E.J. Pacian. The setting is very mysterious. The narrator is, I don't know how to properly explain. It's like, is it second person? The narrator is an observer of you. So you are typing your commands and taking actions in the game. But the text of the game is sort of narrating your actions as if it was observing and describing your actions to a different listener.
Second person.
Second person. Strange perspective for text in general and for a game in particular. The narrator seems to be I've not finished this game, by the way, so I don't have context on the ending. Some of the mystery of this game is it's still a mystery to me. But it begins with, narration by this. I guess the only way to describe her is sort of like a hologram of a princess, observing a ruined world that has been just completely overrun by some kind of, sickness that has to do with brain implants. But your estranged lover, a woman is trapped here, and you are observing her trying to make her way through the maze of this ruined city to your princess chamber at the end. And when I say I'm talking about the narrator, but you're actually taking action for the woman who's exploring this city. So, for example, she's just escaped from the room that she was in at the very beginning, and atrium, north, custodian's closet, S, south, chained, west, audit department. One of the things I like about this game is that it comes with a map and the directions are very clear. Golden roots dangle from broken skylights. Junker Antonia sits rooted to the ground, sucking in energy from across the building, pulsating with stored vigor. Dor, that's Doris, the character you're playing as, stops dead in her tracks. Who? What are you? And then in parentheses, because of course this is the all-seeing narrator, can't she see the blade-like talons, the needle teeth, the single predatory cyber eye? God, cyber eye. The way south is chained shut? If Dor doesn't flee to the north immediately, she's in danger. And so, of course, you have to flee to the north, and then, of course, I tried to save. And the first thing that you type save in any parser, and generally it'll let you save your game anywhere, because parser games are all about save scumming, man. And this was the first time I've ever tried to save in a parser game, and it told me it's too dangerous to save here. I was like, oh man, we are in it. This is a survival horror game, man. There are save points. This is a survival horror game in that there are special safe rooms where you can save your game, and you cannot save elsewhere. I've never seen that in a parser game as far as I can remember, which is wild to think about, because why not, man? Of course that's a mechanic that every other game, save points, that's in everything. But parser games in general, you either don't have saving if it's a trivial game that doesn't really require it, or you can save literally anywhere if you're in a parser game. That's just sort of like the standard for the technology and genre, and yet, you know, here it's controlling your save system in a way that's very PlayStation 1. I was really enjoying this. I haven't played enough of it to really give you a verdict on it or anything. I've played through, it's hard for me to tell exactly how long this game is. I've played through what appears to be about a third of the map, but I suspect it's less than a third of the game. So honestly, you know, take that for what it's worth. Like, I'm looking forward to playing more of this, but what excited me about it was how much it seems to be drawing from the survival horror genre in terms of its mechanics, but presenting that in a format that I'm actually able to enjoy quite a bit more than real survival horror. So, you know, for example, like, you know, you're managing things like, okay, I found a gun. I have to hunt for bullets. You know, enemies might take multiple shots to take them down, but maybe a single shot will slow them down enough that I can escape. You know, managing things like you know, your ammo, your resources. You can backtrack to save points, and those save points have special fruits that you can eat to heal your character. But it's not unlimited. Every save point seems to have like 3 of them, and if you eat them all, you are just screwed.
Love a special fruit.
Yeah,
just
love it. Special glowing fruit.
Ooh, even better.
Even better. So, like, it's got all these tropes of the survival horror genre, which I'm familiar with, but I'm not embedded in that genre. It's not my thing. But I was finding, like, I'm much more willing to engage in survival horror in a text format than I've ever been in even a janky PlayStation 1 format. There's no jump scares in it. I mean, okay, I say that now. Maybe they figured out a way to put jump scares in later, and I'll be shrieking for my life. But there's no jump scares in a parser game. Everything is turn-based. You can methodically plan in a way that I feel like I can't with, like, you know, more traditional survival horror. So I think this is a really interesting and good mashup of genres and modes, and I'm excited to play more of it. So recommended. And also, of course, recommend previous work by this author. I think it's great to see them in the comp.
I've got one last game to talk about. It's another one that came up in the filter of the short choice-based games, and it is called King of XANADU. It's a fun name by Machines Underneath. So
Good name.
Yeah. So this one, you play as the King of XANADU, the titular King of XANADU. And it starts with this really lovely prose about how beautiful the kingdom of XANADU is and how just wonderful everything is for everybody, all of the time, everywhere. Everything's beautiful and everyone's living their best lives and whatnot. And you start making little choices about what you're going to do as the king. And as you make these choices, you start to realize maybe things are not as they seem. So an early one, your military has been, you know, gathered for you to inspect. It's time to inspect the military. So you do it from your balcony, and it's like 50,000 units before you all perfectly aligned, a glorious army. And you have 3 options. One is to split the army into 2 units and have them fight each other. 2 is make them dance like apes. Or 3, like, leave them be. And so I was like, well, I don't really want to do either of those. I mean, you know, I kind of want to because it's a video game, but my first choice in these things is like, what would I do? So I'm like, well, I'm going to leave them be. I'm not going to make them fight or dance like apes. And pretty quickly you realize that leaving them be means they just stay there. They are just until they all start passing out from exhaustion and stuff like that. So that, like, because they are honoring, because they were given no orders, they are honoring the king by staying exactly where they were. And the only way they will not continue to honor the king is to pass out from exhaustion or hunger or whatever. So you start to kind of get the sense that things are maybe not that great here. It might be great for the king, which you are, but it's not that great for everybody else. And it starts getting very strange. You get into some high strangeness with the yearly crop not coming in the way it's supposed to. And you continue to make choices about what to do, how to handle the situation. And I think probably the simplest way to describe this is that it is a game about a descent into madness. And it starts out not that at all. And so I really enjoyed kind of that progression. And yeah, it was, again, pretty short. And I think a pretty good, like, this is the right thing for the right length for something like this. It moves pretty quickly. The story moves pretty quickly. The choices add interesting flavor. And ultimately, while it was kind of a horrible, story, like, the experience of playing it was pretty good. So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Well, I have one more before we wrap up. And it is a bit of a anomaly. I guess I won't bury the lead. I've never played a JRPG for interactive fiction competition, but I played Quest for the Teacup of Minor Sentimental Value by Damon L. Wakes, and loaded up. It had a picture of a lady with a teacup in their hands with the title on it, and I chose new game, saw continue in options. I clicked options first just to see what was there, and there was an option to always dash, and I was confused because I was playing an interactive fiction game. Didn't turn it on, started, and then realized, yes, this is a full-on map. I was in a little house, waking up in a bed, with the phrase, "You awake to a feeling of mild disappointment as if an item of minor sentimental value has been lost to you." Options to make yourself a calming cup of tea or snooze for 5 more minutes. I chose to make tea. My teacup was gone.
Oh, no.
Walked around the house, looked around. The teacup. I don't love it, but I have minor sentimental. I'm attached to my teacup. I want to go find my teacup. Start wandering around the town, asking friends, barging into houses. Has a lot of humor on RPGs. The interesting thing about this is you don't actually walk around. There's no arrow keys. There's no up, down, left, right. You just make a choice and it will walk you there, but it has full animations to walk you around.
Oh. It looks very, for all the world, it looks exactly like an RPG Maker game.
It looks exactly like an RPG Maker game, except they've auto walked.
Huh.
Talked to a couple friends, and then they don't know anything. And you walk out of the house, and the guy walks up and says, "Oh, wait, one more thing I just thought of. Do you think your teacup might have been taken by actual, literal Satan?" And you go, "Oh, yeah, I forgot that. I keep forgetting he moved into this village."
Oh.
Yeah.
Greatest trick the devil ever pulled.
Yeah. There's a lot of things in this game. It's very short. It's under 30 minutes, but the fun thing about it is the multitude of bad endings. It is very clearly going to get you to a bad ending. For example, you could just choose to jump into a swamp of doom and the words "bad end" come up. Bad ending. And then you start up and you go back to continue, and it'll bring you back to the save slot. So it has auto saves at any moment where you're likely going to do something to kill yourself, sometimes for funny reasons, sometimes for whoopsie doodle reasons. I think it was 17 minutes of save time, but there was some backtracking because I actually was pursuing bad endings because I thought they were funny. Some people have commented that the animations were slow, like you have to watch animations happen, and they weren't expecting that in an IFComp. I thought it was just fine. I was happy. I would just, watch these little JRPG folks wander back. It wasn't a huge map or anything. I thought it was pretty adorable and very novel. There's even combat.
Wow. Yeah, that's really cool.
Like actual JRPG combat.
Wild. What type of choices are you making during combat?
There are choices to fight, guard, depending on the comp, who you're fighting, there are some meta fights in here that you can opt into, depending on where you're going, or like sometimes you're fighting because you've picked a fight, and sometimes you end up in one accidentally. But it's fairly elaborate. Like you can choose different. You can drink your tea from your inventory. You can, I'm not saying it's complicated, but you can do combat. It just feels very light. It feels like someone was familiar with RPG Maker and wanted to do something that kind of was much more narrative based, took a lot of the extras out, and just felt very paired. Very, very silly. Again, your neighbor is actual, comma, literal, comma, or actual, comma, literal Satan. And they're like, oh yeah, the Prince of Darkness. It's that kind of game.
Love a game with Satan in it, you know?
Yeah. And I think it's such a short game that anything past the reveal that you are going to be talking to Satan about your teacup. Also, the fact that they keep reiterating that the teacup isn't really nice. It used to have a floral pattern, but it's worn off, so now it's just a white teacup. But it used to have a floral pattern, and that's important to you. Like the reinforcement that this teacup is just your favorite teacup, and everyone else thinks it's dumb.
Valuable. Well, but I mean that's that's how a lot of the
people in it are doing weird stuff when you go to talk to them, like alphabetizing potatoes by variety. Like clearly just a lot of whimsy and fun into this.
Seems like that would be from like Thank Goodness You're Here, like organize the potatoes or something.
Exactly. Cute, light. If you're looking for something short and sweet and you want to see what a narrative choice-centered JRPG is, Quest for the Teacup of Minor Sentimental Value. I had a really nice time with it. I'll also say I'm started the Apothecaries Assistant, which is by Allyson Gray. But the format of that game is that you come back to it 5 different times to play different times you're working in a shop. And so it's designed to be about 5 minutes per day, and then you kind of finish what you can do that day and have to return.
That's cool.
So I've started it. It seems to have cryptic crosswords in it.
Okay.
That you have to solve.
All right.
So I don't know what those are going to do. I'll find out. And maybe tomorrow, if I play Fall in London, so I'll just play Fall in London, run out of actions, go to Apothecaries Assistant, run out of actions.
To some of us, all crosswords are cryptic. So I'm curious to hear what you mean by
I'm just starting to learn cryptic crosswords. They are a British puzzle.
Oh.
They're way more popular in the UK, the United States. Stephen Sondheim loved them.
Okay. Oh.
But they have very distinct clues. Like I'll read one. Repel man with cleaning product, parentheses 9. Harmful pattern of a violent bike. I've started, I aspire to be better at cryptic crosswords. So
it's just a more complicated crossword.
No, the idea is that you have specific, like the words both contain a definition and a clue to and a clue to wordplay in them.
So a more complicated crossword.
And so you have to learn mixed drink would mean you anagram the word drink. Because mixed,
God.
Yeah, you're making a face. The Brits love this. I'm explaining this very poorly.
Well, they got nothing better to do over there, I guess. That's. I've been slowly learning the language of crosswords. I've been doing the mini in New York Times for a little while now, and so I'm a crossword novice.
Mm-hmm.
Like the minis still get me, so
this is literally none of the skills in a crossword will help you.
Cool,
in a cryptic.
great, okay.
So love literally none of the skills out of my 2-year streak will help me. But here's an actual example I can give the answer to. So struggle with siesta upsetting, the Spanish, turns into wrestle.
Wait.
Yeah. Struggle is the definition. With siesta upsetting the Spanish is clue to put the L anagram it, and then like the Spanish means put the word L in and upset it, meaning turn it to EL. So, or turn EL to LE. And then siesta is telling you to put the word rest in it. Yeah, right? Like, so with siesta, that means rest. Upsetting is LE. So you're like,
oh my God.
And then with means you put the letter W at the front. It's a disaster. I'm so bad at cryptics. Yeah. I barely can explain them. I'm like, maybe I'll get good at these, but they're going to be in this game. I'm gonna solve all the cryptics.
This does sound like a Laura sort of thing. So I'm happy for you. I am. This sounds great for you.
I am a baby at cryptics. There's a site called Minute Cryptic that I'm trying to start doing, and it's rough stuff, but I'm doing okay.
Okay. Well, I wish you good luck.
We're all going to go with me on this journey, and I will not explain how to do cryptic. Reagan is now back at his desk, and I can stop trying to explain what cryptics are.
That wasn't us just vamping to
Thank
I was
you
like,
all.
I'll explain what cryptics are. This will be short. Absolutely not.
Sorry, guys. My poor daughter, I guess she had some kind of a nightmare.
You had to put her in the harness.
Exactly.
That's okay. You just missed me trying to explain to Nate what a cryptic crossword was, and he visibly was less interested the more I explained.
No, not less interested. Just the more and more I understood this is not for me.
I've bought a book,
but not uninterested,
to teach me how to do this.
We've only got so long on this earth.
I'm a little bit. I wanted to ask why, but you know what? I'm not that. I don't want to yuck someone else's yum. I've been getting in. I've been getting in the mini, so I know I'm on like. I could. This is. It's like spicy food.
Achievements. Like maybe I can learn how to do cryptic crosswords.
Yeah. Okay.
Without looking at the Wall Street Journal Guide to Cryptic Crosswords every time we need to solve one.
Well, again, I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Good luck, Laura.
Don't ask me for help.
Well, we are definitely out of time for this episode. We've been recording long enough. So, listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Short Game. We are very likely going to be covering a lot more of IFComp 2024. But the way these sorts of things generally go, we always have big plans and then we end up scaling them back a little bit. We're probably going to do at least one, most likely two additional episodes about this comp. So if you are playing along, if you're checking out if you're checking out the games of the comp, this is the time when we need you, the listener, most, because it's actually pretty difficult to even really just get a sense of what all the games are and to play any interesting subset of them. We need your help. So if you play games in the comp and you say, hey, that was cool, please tell us. We would love to hear it. We're also monitoring the various different, collaborative spreadsheets and reviews from other outlets and things like that. But nothing is better than our listeners telling us what they have played and thought was cool. So please do that if you're playing along. And if you're not, that's cool too. We will have an open channel in our Discord for patrons only about IFComp through the entire length of the comp, where we can chat about the games that we're playing. Folks have already been offering some great suggestions for games to check out in this year's comp there. Thank you very much to all of those folks. We have a great community, and many of them are interactive fiction enthusiasts. Thanks to Josh. Thanks to JMac. Thanks to all the folks in that channel for pointing us in the direction of interesting stuff. So we really love you guys. We love covering the comp, and we love that it is something that brings people together every year. By the way, if you want to be part of that community, you can join our Patreon, patreon.com/theshortgame, or just go to shortgame.fm where all the links and buttons are. All of our patrons get access to our Discord, including the IFComp channel, but all the other places, all the other stuff on our Discord too. Our Discord is just active enough to be exciting and just calm enough not to be overwhelming. You can feel like you know folks there. It's a great great online hang. It's one of my favorite things that happens on my phone and computer. So join us on the Discord. It's great. All of our listeners should check us out. Check us out there. I think you can join for $3 a month or more. You know, we always love folks submitting, what's the right word? You know, subscribing at larger amounts, but $3 a month gets you into the Discord, as well as all the other myriad benefits, which I will not enumerate because they mostly don't exist.
The Discord has basically become my social media. Like I'm more or less done with all of the
I haven't, except for Instagram.
I'm not even on that anymore. It's like if I want to interact with people online, I just get on the Discord. Like I'm done with all the other ones. So
you know,
how else would I hang out with your wife except on Instagram?
Well, there.
Text message.
I see her in real life like basically every day.
I don't have that privilege. So
that is really true. Like I used to post a lot on Twitter, and I mean that's been gone for a while. And you know, I do still like go and scroll on some of the other Twitter methodones, but I don't post anywhere anymore, and I'm fine with that. But you know where I do post is the What's Making Me Happy channel on the Discord. Whenever I see a funny meme or a weird article or whatever, I go post that to the high quality garf. I post that shit to the What's Making Me Happy channel on our Discord. It's a great place to be if you want that sort of vibe. So check us out there. Let's see. You can also find all of our stuff on shortgame.fm, including links to all of our socials that we're no longer posting on as previously stated. I am Reagan Kelly.
I'm Lauren Ash.
I'm Nate Heininger.
And thanks once again for joining us on this episode of The Short Game.